There's some troubling stories. Tough segue here, but there was a car accident that killed two teenage girls here in the Valley. It's a horrible story. How does this happen? Tell us what happened.
Well, listen, we had that terrible crash a few weeks back with the drag racing, the mother and the father that were speeding at upwards 120 miles an hour. The mother had some alcohol in her system, and sadly, they had a 1-year-old child in the car. That child died. So we talked about that. Now, on the heels of that, another terrible story. A driver of an SUV killed two 16-year-old girls in a crosswalk Monday night. Well, now she's admitting to police that she smoked marijuana, used heroin, meth, and PCP earlier in the day. Her name is Ebony Whitaker. She's 38 years old. She told police, "I don't remember the collision." And then when the officers informed her that she killed these two juveniles, she began crying and said she was sorry. A little bit more about the crash itself. According to a report, Whitaker lost control of her Mercedes-Benz while weaving in and out of southbound traffic on Maryland Parkway as she approached a red light at the intersection with Katy Avenue, if you know where that is.
Yes, I do.
One of the teens was thrown onto the road and slid underneath the vehicle. Another teen was thrown into a nearby McDonald's drive-thru lane as Whitaker's vehicle spun out, eventually striking a tree. The girls, Del Sol High School students, had been best friends since middle school. And again, more on this Ebony Whitaker, told police she's a daily user of heroin, was driving home from a best friend's house when the crash happened. She consumed 2 beers, smoked pot before getting behind the wheel. Earlier in the day, she added her friends had also smoked a PCP-covered cigarette.
Oh.
It's a lot to digest.
All right, so first of all, my heart goes out to the families of those 2 young girls who lost their life. I can't even imagine the pain that they are going through right now. That is so horrible. Let me just say this to start, and in no way, shape, or form am I blaming those 2 girls. They obviously did nothing wrong. 2 innocent girls that lost their lives. But let this be a lesson to anybody out there. I never cross a street without looking both ways. I never assume that a car is going to stop, even if I'm in a crosswalk. And I'm not even suggesting these girls weren't looking. I mean, this animal was obviously driving so recklessly on whatever she was, drugs and alcohol, whatever, that she might have been speeding and the girls probably had no chance to get out of the way. But you have to look both ways. With that being said, how are pieces of scum like this animal allowed to get into a car and drive with her history? I don't understand it.
Yeah, you brought up a good point. How is she even allowed behind the wheel with her history? I didn't even mention the history. Court records show that Whitaker has faced drug-related charges in Las Vegas dating back to 2007 and pleaded guilty to a charge of malicious injury to a vehicle after she admitted to kicking out a police car window back in 2004.
It's just unbelievable. And you just mentioned, we covered the story about the mom who killed her 1-year-old because she was driving drunk and speeding.
Racing.
Speed racing. I'm telling you right now, if you get 1 DUI, you shouldn't be able to drive for years. Years. If you ever hurt anybody or even hurt yourself, that's it. It's a 1 strike, you're done. You should not be allowed to drive a car. Make no mistake about it. I know a lot of people in this country are very entitled. Driving a car is a privilege. And if you hurt somebody, or if anybody, you don't have to kill somebody. Just if you hurt anybody, or even if you get into an accident while under the influence, I don't think you should ever be allowed to drive again, or at least give them a decade. That's the problem with our society. It's a slap on the wrist, even in this town, which a lot of people tell me is more strict when it comes to DUIs than other cities across the country. A friend of mine flipped his car over on the 15. He didn't hurt anyone else but himself. He drunk driving. He was driving a car again in 3 months. And I told him, I said, you know what? You could have killed somebody. I'm not comfortable ever getting into the car with you again. And now we have these 2 poor, innocent young girls who are how old? They're teenagers.
16.
It's just, it's horrible.
But Brian, it goes beyond having a couple of beers. And I'm not saying that's okay either, but I could easily see where someone might have a couple of drinks, and maybe they're even someone who alcohol doesn't even affect that much. I had a couple of drinks and got behind the wheel. I guess we can, debate whether that's irresponsible or not. We are talking about, if this is true, marijuana, heroin, meth, and PCP. This isn't a couple of White Claws.
No, it's not.
Okay, these are hardcore drugs. And, to be honest, knowing that there are people out in this city, in Las Vegas, that are on those kind of drugs behind the wheel scares the hell out of me.
And it should. There's a lot of bad drivers in this city, but there's also a lot of drivers that are under the influence of drugs and alcohol, and it is scary. You could be the most defensive driver on the planet, and you could still get killed. And we covered the story, which was heart-wrenching, absolutely heart-wrenching, a few months ago, right down the street from the radio station, where an entire family was killed at the hands of a driver that lost control.
Yeah, right over here at Durango and Desert Inn.
It happens
all
all
the time. An entire family wiped out.
It happens all the time. Like I said, when I was 12 years old, I lost my grandmother. A guy took his eye off the road, driving under the influence, hit us head on. Both my parents were in comas. My sister's had 3 surgeries on her stomach. Luckily, my parents and my sister survived. My grandmother didn't. I was the only one that didn't get seriously hurt. My family has been terrorized and has been the victim of one of these dopes. And I'm telling you, this woman who did this, as far as I'm concerned, if you had my way, I'd give her the electric chair. Yeah. I really would. I would just wipe her out, give her the electric chair, or throw her off a cliff. But you know what? That's not going to happen. Some stupid judge is probably going to give her 20 years or 15 years, and then she'll be out in 7 or 8, and it wouldn't shock me if we were talking about this woman when I'm 60 years old killing somebody else. I'm sick and tired of it.
But she stated she was sorry.
Yeah, she's sorry, so I guess that makes it okay.
All right.